Excuse number 10 that airlines use to justify why they don't take action on contrails. Acknowledging contrails would admit a bigger climate problem. If we act on contrails, we're admitting that the climate impact of aviation is much bigger than most people think. We have no incentive to do so. Until there's more conclusive evidence and agreement, we're concentrating our efforts on SAF and fleet upgrades to meet our net zero targets on CO2.
Yeah, so I can see in particular kind of capitalist system and the system that we operate why this excuse comes up. But, I would say it's a bad excuse in the sense that it's simply immoral. It's not a moral excuse, right? It's saying that if we have to admit something that we know to be true, then we're just admitting that our impact is twice as large as it is because it is, but we could just hide it and not tell people about it, and then everyone will think we're only half as bad as we really are. I think there is a real danger from that immorality, though, which is that people don't like things going wrong anyway, but what people really don't like is cover-ups. So people are always unhappy when things go wrong anyway, but they're particularly unhappy when they're covered up. And not admitting the size of the contrail impact issue ultimately becomes a cover-up. It's not really plausible for a large portion of airlines now to claim that they have no idea that non-CO2 effects are very strong. You and I attend a lot of sustainability symposiums, etc., where the majority of airlines are present at one or more of them. Whilst non-CO2 is not discussed at those things perhaps as much as it should, it certainly comes up at every single aviation sustainability event, and there is always someone like myself or otherwise saying that it's a very large issue. So I don't think it's plausible for airlines to claim that they had no awareness that contrails were a large problem, even if there is even with the uncertainty in it. So I don't think this excuse can hold for much longer before it really becomes quite an active cover-up. And we have seen discussions from the industry, which I would say do border on a kind of furtive attitude of we must sort of suppress discussion of contrails because, we'd then be admitting to a very large problem, at least until we've figured it all out. I don't think that's responsible to your customers to hide some of the impact. People are buying an airline ticket. To me, they have a right to understand what the impact of that is. And so I don't think that is the right example we should be setting in a society that we kind of cover up some of that impact. We've seen, aviation would not be the first industry to cover up some of its environmental impact. So I can understand some of the drivers that cause it to happen, but it's not what should be happening. There is a flip side in this, and I appreciate that we will, it is unlikely that we will totally eliminate contrails at any point. There is a positive news story in this. CO2 for aviation is tremendously difficult to avoid. It is, definitely technically one of the most hard to abate sectors. But the narrative on contrails is very different. That there is an opportunity here. We haven't figured it all out, and we need to do some trials, and we need to do some other bits and pieces. But that it is plausible that we could eliminate contrail, mitigate contrail warming, or a significant portion of it in a kind of 1 to 2 decade period. It is unique in its impact. The contrail web that's in the sky today is sustained by the aircraft that have flown today. So if you turn contrails off, that warming effect vanishes there and then. It's not like CO2 that's cumulative. And that means rather than stopping additional warming, what it actually does is it actually cools the planet relative to where it was with the contrail blanket on. That is a very unusual mitigation. That the only comparative one that I can think of in a straightforward way is carbon removal. So where we take carbon dioxide actively out the atmosphere and we put it in the ground, that takes away a warming from the atmosphere that was happening. Contrail mitigation is much, much larger than carbon removals has any likelihood of being in the next 25 years. So aviation is standing with a really major tool to help us stay under 2 degrees. And I think it's we have a significant onus on us to talk about that and to educate the public about that. And the flip side is a cover up that I don't think the public will forgive the industry for.